simply devastating.
Overhand right, you see that?
Pacquiao missed the right hand.
He knew he was coming.
Boxing's biggest fights, knockouts at Christmas. With this being the season of goodwill, boxing generally shuts down over the holiday season, with big fights in America and the United Kingdom about as rare as seeing Santa. Boxing is practiced in a few areas on Christmas Day, Boxing Day, and New Year's Eve around the world. But that was not the case decades ago when title fights and big names were involved in some season's beatings. Throughout boxing history, legendary names gloved up and took to the ring rather than partaking in the usual festivities. This Christmas, we will look back at the legendary names involved in famous festive fights. If you're enjoying this video, click that subscribe button and hit on the notification bell to never miss any boxing news. Let's get started. Last Saturday's world title fight between Andy Lee and Billy Joe Saunders was the closest thing to a major title fight taking place in the UK before Christmas, and the Hurt Business then goes on hiatus until the new year. Similarly, the last big boxing show in America until Deontay Wilder defends his WBC World Heavyweight title in New York on January 16th was last Saturday's bill, which featured World Featherweight #1 Nicholas Walters and the WBA interim heavyweight title bout between Luis Ortiz and Bryant Jennings. On the same night in London, former world heavyweight champion David Haye makes his long-awaited comeback in the first significant fight in the UK in nearly a month. Professional boxing events are scheduled for Christmas Day in Belgium and South Africa, as well as Boxing Day in Belgium, Argentina, Italy, Japan, Nigeria, and Ghana. On December 29th, 2 world title fights will take place on the same card in Tokyo, Japan, as Naoya Inoue defends his WBO super flyweight title against Warlito Perena and Javier Mendoza defends his IBF light flyweight title against Akira Yanez. Japan and Thailand have a penchant for boxing around this time of year, and on New Year's Eve, Japan hosts no fewer than 5 world title fights at 3 different venues, the pick of which is Japan's WBA World Super Featherweight Champion Takashi Uchiyama, 23-0-1, 19 KOs, against Nicaragua's Oliver Flores, 27-1-2, 17 KOs. Uchiyama will defend his world title on New Year's Eve for the 5th year in a row. After reigning for 5 years and currently ranking first in the ESPN World Divisional Rankings at Super Featherweight, he clearly enjoys it. Other world title fights on a busy New Year's Eve for Japanese boxing are at flyweight, light flyweight, and minimum weight. But boxing during the holiday season was once common in various parts of the world.
It's December 26, 1908, and world's heavyweight champion Tommy Burns defends his title in Sydney, Australia against Jack Johnson.
Jack Johnson versus Tommy Burns, 1908. On Boxing Day in 1908 in Sydney, Australia, Jack Johnson became boxing's first black world heavyweight champion, becoming the sport's first black world heavyweight champion. Johnson from Texas toyed with defending champion Tommy Burns before forcing a 7th-round stoppage in Sydney to begin his 7-year reign. The Galveston Giant eventually ended the one-sided beatdown in the 14th round. To avoid any evidence of a black man knocking out a white man, cameras were turned off, and police stormed into the ring after Burns was dumped on the canvas to stop the one-sided fight. Burns, a Canadian, was so humiliated that he stayed in Australia for 14 months. On Boxing Day 1908, Johnson made history. Without a doubt, the biggest and most visible fight to ever take place during the holiday season. Harry Greb versus Tommy Lauren, 1923. A few years later, on Christmas Day 1923, Harry Greb was scheduled to defend his world middleweight title against Tommy Lauren, but Lauren overate and missed the weight by more than 8 pounds, resulting in a non-title bout. Greb dominated Lauren over 10 rounds, winning by decision in the 5th of 6 meetings between these two eventual Hall of Fame legends. The winner here was the series leader with 4 victories overall, while Lauren only had 1 victory and the pair battled to a draw in their other meeting. Greb would only live to see 2 more Christmases, while Lauren went on to become the world's light heavyweight champion. On Christmas Day 1923, Greb faced off against rival Lauren. Most historians regard Harry Greb as the greatest prize fighter of all time, and he fought anyone, anywhere, at any time, even on Christmas Day. Kid Chocolate vs. Frankie Click, 1933. Kid Chocolate was involved in yet another famous Christmas boxing match. The Cuban legend had a bleak Christmas Day in 1933. By this point in his distinguished career, Cuba's first world champion was in decline, and he became routine work for Frankie Click. He was stopped in 7 rounds by Click to lose his super featherweight title in Philadelphia, possibly still reeling from a KO loss to Tony Canzonieri just a month before. Following the fight, it was discovered that he had syphilis, prompting him to retire. However, he returned and won 47 of 50 fights before retiring and eventually returning to Cuba for a quieter life. Sugar Ray Robinson vs. Hans Schretz, 1950. Sugar Ray Robinson defeated Frenchman Robert Villemain in a 9-round fight 2 days before the Christmas Day Showdown, being his 5th fight in a month. The great Sugar Ray Robinson was in no mood to celebrate. Robinson delivered a merciless beating to Hans Schretz, who was homesick in Germany and had just returned from an overnight train ride from Paris with his entourage. According to reports, Robinson and Hans Schretz performed in front of a crowd of 10,000 people. Many of those were American troops stationed in Germany. Within 30 seconds of the fight starting, Robinson dropped Schretz with a left hook in the first round. Schretz had a long and painful Christmas Eve. On the first of 7 knockdowns, the German found himself on the losing end. Robinson would come back even harder each time Schretz got up after a knockdown to show off his flashiness and power by repeatedly landing punishing rights and lefts on his opponent. Robinson went on to win the fight by knockout in the 5th round. This was his 4th KO win in 5 fights in 29 days. The victory over Schretz extended the champion's impressive 91-fight win streak.
Newspapermen remarked to George Gainford, my manager, that I was a sweet fighter. And George replied, sweet as sugar. And since that time, Sugar Ray Robinson has been at it.
This was the final fight of Robinson's famous European tour, as he tested himself at middleweight in preparation for the legendary St. Valentine's Day Massacre 2 months later against Jake LaMotta. It was the 30-year-old's knockout win in 5 fights in 29 days, part of a 91-fight winning streak and the first time a world champion fought in Germany. Robinson earned $50,000 for his 5-round thrashing, but in true Sugar Ray fashion, he spent it all before sailing home 2 days later. Jake LaMotta vs. Danny Nardico, 1952.
Hi there, folks. This is Jim Stevenson taking you back to December 31st, 1952. The Coliseum, Coral Gables, Florida. Danny Nardico, sensational Florida slugger, meets Jake LaMotta, the former middleweight champion, in a 10-round light heavyweight bout.
Robinson defeated Jake LaMotta for the world middleweight title 2 months later in what became known as the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. LaMotta, also known as the Raging Bull, was in action a few years later on New Year's Eve 1952 when he was knocked out for the first time in 103 fights by a right hand from Danny Nardico. LaMotta was being beaten so badly in Florida that his corner had to pull him out at the end of the 7th round. Former world middleweight champion LaMotta went off to celebrate the new year and reflect on his career. which had only 3 fights left. On January 1st, 1907, Gans and Herman squared off. While many people experienced the self-inflicted effects of New Year's Day festivities, Kid Herman experienced a different type of headache on January 1st, 1907. Herman was reeling from a devastating knockout loss to boxing's first ever African-American world champion, Joe Gans. The Old Master earned an 8th round stoppage victory after landing a flush right hook on his opponent as he successfully defended his lightweight title in Nevada to ring in the new year in style. Gans would go down in history as one of the division's all-time great champions after reigning for the entire following year. Unfortunately, he died 2 years later from tuberculosis at the age of 35.
All I represent in my confidence. I am the greatest. I cannot lose. I'm pretty. And every man believes he's the greatest. Every man would like to be the greatest. Many want to say this, but they fear it. And they see this in themselves, and some hate me for it, and some love me for it.
Even before he faced Muhammad Ali in a ring in Switzerland in 1971, the little-known semi-pro boxer Jurgen Blenn knew he was doomed to lose. But despite being scrappy in both the ring and in life, he saw an opportunity to make his name. If I win, the whole world is open to me. If I lose by a small margin or look reasonably good, everything is still possible, he said before the fight, adding, and if I fail, it's really all over. He did, as expected, lose, being knocked out in the 7th round in front of 8,000 or so spectators on December 26th at Zurich's Hallenstadion. But, as he had hoped, there was a bright side. The fight, which made him one of only 2 Germans to face Ali, Karl Mildenberger lost to him in 1966, made Blenn an instant celebrity in Germany. Which among the fights to you was the biggest knockouts during Christmas? What are your thoughts on this topic? Please let us know in the comments section below. If you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Until next time, peace.